Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Empower LEP podcast. I'm your host, Jana Parker. I'm a licensed educational psychologist, a group practice owner, and mentor at Empower LEP. Today, I host Dr. Amy Merenda, a seasoned school psychologist and a new-ish LEP who is currently taking the leap into full-time private practice. Dr. Merenda and I talk about the steps that she took to ensure a smooth transition and her passion for neurodiversity-affirming practices. She is full of passion for the field and her work, and I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. Welcome back to the Empower LEP podcast. I am here with Dr. Amy Merenda. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
I am excited to have you, and congratulations, because I know that you just earned your doctorate.
Yeah, recent. Yep. I know.
What kind of I'm just going to jump right in. What kind of program did you go to? How was it? Did you recommend it?
Yes, and yes. So I went to the University of the Pacific in Stockton, California, and I went there for undergrad as well as graduate school. So I went there for many reasons. It's close-ish to home, and that mattered to me when I was going to undergrad. And then I finished my undergrad program in psychology, and when I was getting into being a senior, I was like, what am I going to do with all of this, And my mom is actually, she retired, but she was a speech language pathologist in a local district as well. So I was very familiar with special education, and my reason for being a school psychologist really is my family and my sister in particular. So I was drawn to school psychology for many reasons. And I actually sat in on a graduate class as a senior in their school psych program to figure out if that was something I wanted to do. I loved it, got to know the professor. I actually had an opportunity to be their graduate assistant as well in the graduate program. So I definitely took advantage of that. And I went right through. So I never stopped. I got my master's, I got my EDS, I got my EDD. I just went for it. And I'm very glad that I did. There are many times now that I look back and I'm like, I don't think it was a lot of work. So I was glad that I was able to just kind of have that opportunity to go right through. And I got it when I finished my internship. So I finished everything all at one time. Yes. And then I remember sitting in my an internship IEP, and I had just defended my dissertation a week before. And I wasn't married yet. So my maiden name is Burns, which don't tell my husband, but I was pretty cool. Dr. Burns is pretty cool. So I remember sitting there and I was like, Doctor, I'm Dr. Burns, your intern.
Yeah.
And then I finished everything, and then it all kind of went from there. But I loved my program. And one thing about UOP's program was that you go into the field your first year. So you're doing fieldwork from day one. And I know that was fairly unique. And that was something that I think really helped me not only learn skills, but you can picture yourself doing this or you can't. Right. And I feel in our program, watching people kind of figure that out for themselves was really awesome to see. And we're also placed, it's in Stockton, California. So you're close to SAC, you're close to the Bay. You had so many different directions, physical directions, geographic directions you could go. I did some work in the Bay Area district. I did some work closer to where I am now. And you really could establish where do I want to be? Mm-hmm. So that was kind of a tangent, Jana, but I loved my program. No, and I would rep it for the world. Cool. So, it really made my experience and molded me a lot.
Yeah. I love to hear about school psychologists who've done a doctorate program, just to hear some of the differences, right? I asked Dr. Angoff the same kind of thing, right? And she said the same thing, she wanted that internship experience kind of right out of the gates, or field, experience. And then I think, I was doing field-based experience in my master's program, but it was it wasn't school psychology work. It was more counseling work our first year.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, there are so few doctoral programs in our area. And I think most of us just do the master's and don't I don't know, but don't think beyond that for a while and then you go, wait a second, do I
Hey,
go back
I
to
should have
school
done that.
now? I should have done that.
Yeah.
Okay, so then take me through, take me through a little bit of history from what you were doing, what you're doing now, and congratulations are of course in order because you are leaving your
I am.
Okay.
I know. We need a drum set going.
I know.
I know. So, okay. So I obviously graduated. Can I tell a fun story
Of course.
about when I graduated? Okay. So when I walked the stage to get my doctorate and my credential and the whole thing, right before I walked, my now husband proposed to. Like literally right there. I know. It was such a magical day. I know.
I just like that.
It was so exciting. And I remember like I was also getting an award at the graduation ceremony. And so I was sitting in the front, like I was staring at this engagement ring, looking around, like up at the stands. Like it was such a surreal day. And my phone buzzed. And I know you're not supposed to like check your phone, but there's a lot going on. So I pull out my phone and it's him. And he says, look inside your ring. And I take it off. I'm like, can I take this off? Like, what do you do? And engraved in it, it says, you are my person, which is what he always used to tell me. He still does, but, and it was engraved in the ring. And I'm like, is this like, this is a movie? Like there's going to be a camera popping out somewhere. Like it was so exciting. So I really got off on a good foot.
Yeah, you did. My goodness.
To being a school psychologist. So I just love that story because I feel like that was such a special moment. But
absolutely, I love that.
Yeah. So I was an intern in Elk Grove Unified and I love it. It was such a fun internship and I ended up staying there. So I got to stay there for my first 6 years of being a school psychologist. And it has been just such an incredible time. The team is great. We have a large psych team.
Yeah, I was there at the beginning of the year.
I was not there because I was on maternity leave.
Okay, because I was like,
my journey continues.
I'm like, did you not? Why didn't you say hi?
Oh no, I was physically not there. Don't worry.
Okay, all right.
We have a huge psych team, as you know. We had like almost 80 psychs if you include our interns too. So that has been such a wonderful experience because if you are feeling uncertain about something or you don't, we just send an email. You throw your thoughts to the wild and it all comes back to you. People are helping and responsive. It's been so amazing. And I started out at 2 elementary schools, very different elementary schools. So that is something I have to say was really awesome part of being in Elk Grove. We're geographically so big that one of my sites was, one of the most well-off schools in the district. And my other is a Title I. So seeing just the vast differences in supporting families and students was really exciting as somebody that was there to really want to help families and help kids. I quickly learned some of the major differences. When you go into meetings, the feeling is different, when families are looking for certain things, or maybe they come defensive or they come with different resources involved. So I ended up leaving one of my sites and then I had 2 Title I schools for many years. Loved that as well. Just a different feeling, of need and value too. Then I got pregnant with my first child and I was very excited, but I also realized I love helping people. I want to be there. I want to do that, but being very reflective of myself. I also have a hard time with the red tape of things. And that was so, I was already feeling that big time in where I was and how I was doing things. And I'm a problem solver and I love, I want to get in there and fix it. And if you need me to cut some red tape, tell me how I need to do it. I will go do it. Let's do this. But I was already feeling that. And then this other big life change happened. And I'm like, okay, now I'm having this baby. I'm so excited. And I felt like if not now, then when, so I'm a very type A. I love to plan everything out. And I immediately learned oh my gosh, I can't plan all this out. I don't know how it's going to go when I'm on leave. I don't know you don't know any of it.
Yeah.
I know nothing. This is the unknown. And so I just went all in. I came back from maternity leave this year in the fall. I missed your presentation. So sad, but I missed it by a hair. Came back in the fall, late fall. And then I quickly was like, nope, like I have changed not only personally, but I had this just more innate drive to understand like I get to have control over my life and my job. And I have such a desire to feel meaningful. Like that's a part of me. Like that is who I am. And if this red tape is stopping me from doing that, then I'm going to leave that, I mean, it's terrifying and scary, and other psychs are like, oh, I would be so scared. And like, I don't want to mince words. Like I am scared, it's a big change, but I've never felt as confident in it, like my life is already like, whoo, very different.
Yes.
I'm already adjusting. So why not adjust and really mold it to be something that I feel meaningful, not only at home, but also professionally. And not to say that I never did, or I don't, because by the date we're recording this, I have 2 weeks left, 2 weeks left in the district. But who's counting? I only have a countdown app on my phone.
Right.
But and there are a lot of moments that I do feel meaningful, and I have. But more of the bureaucratic pieces, I think, are things that at this time in my life I want to navigate differently.
Yeah.
So I definitely made that choice. I remember telling my husband, I was like, all right, I'm doing it. And he's like, yeah, I knew you were going to do this.
Yeah.
So here we are. And I've got 2 weeks left. And I came back part-time. So I really tried to take this time to dabble in things and try some different things and really change my thinking and do as much as I can just to like feel excited. Not that I'm not excited, but feel more prepared as possible to make this change. And so here I am making the change.
I'm so happy for you. And you're totally preaching to the choir. I felt the exact same way. It took me a very long time to finally make that commitment to take the leap, but I didn't look back. I felt a huge weight off of my shoulders when I gave my notice in the February of the year that I was, gonna quit. Yep. And I like felt this huge sense of relief and like I had like a fire lit, right? Like, cause you're like, I think there's a part of us as school psychologists that like love that challenge and that exponential learning curve. And we love that.
Yep. It's innate. Yeah. It's just inside of us. Yeah.
I would love to know about the different things that you're talking about that you did to kind of dabble, and like start to get prepared, because I think a lot of people are like, well, how do I leave, or how do I know, or how do I start, and so this, what did you do? Yeah.
I would love to share. So I got my LEP in 2022, in the summer of 22. And then that year, I was still working full time, and I was just glad that I had it. And then after everything happened, I had my baby. I was like, I'm doing something with this, and I am not someone that like lets the grass grow under me. Like, and that's a pro and a con, like there are times that I'm like, wow, yay me. And then there are times that I'm like, I wish I could take a second here, but it's just inside of us to keep going.
Yes.
And after I was on maternity leave, I really took a lot of that time to kind of start putting myself out there. I had my website created. If anyone looks at my website and you see my headshots, just know that like underneath the headshot was a very pregnant belly. So like I was trying to get these pieces into place, prior to, going back to work and figuring all that out. And so since I've gone back, I have used some of the days that I am obviously not working in the district to practice different things. I've taken on some IEEs. I've taken on some private clients, a counseling client, just some different things. And I have never been so busy in my life than I am right now, because I have like 800 things happening. But I just keep telling myself, that's about to change. I can start to kind of focus differently and on things that I want to prioritize more. And I think that's a way that I do remind myself literally every day right now, because I'm like, okay, like which hat am I wearing right now? Like I'm in the district, it's the district hat. I'm this person, I'm doing this. And it's been very exhausting, but again, I don't doubt it for a second, because I know that what I'm doing right now is really building a base to jump off of here in 2 weeks.
Right.
And I'm pumped for it. But I also feel like, oh my gosh, I have been putting myself in these situations these last several months. And I'm like, I have no clue how to do this, but I'm going to do it right now. Don't know how to do this, but I'm going to do it right now. And it feels scary and intense. But when I'm done with the thing that I'm doing, like my first IEE obviously is stressful. You want to do a good job. But it was so exciting to accomplish. And I feel like I'm at this interesting point where I'm wearing all these hats. So I try to keep all those perspectives in mind when I go do these things. Mm-hmm. Trying my first IEE, like last week, I was in your shoes, person. Like, I know exactly how everybody is feeling right now, because I'm wearing too many hats currently, but I can kind of flip flop right now. And that's something I never want to lose, being able to remember and see and know what it's like on every side of the table as much as possible. And really, that's kind of what got me into this field in the first place, just trying to, remember and do things for families that I wish people did for my sister and my family. So it's just always remembering and kind of going back to your roots and staying humble and true to yourself, I think makes a really big difference. And I've definitely been humbled these last few months, but I'm so excited about it all, and just checking things off the list and building that confidence. And every day is a learning curve and is growth. And at the end of every day, it's exhausting, but a year ago, I didn't know how to even approach so many of these things. And now I do. And I mean, I look at that, and that is so exciting to me and makes me really proud, and excited for the future.
Yeah. Did you just kind of, things kind of came toward you and you just said, okay, like, so what more than, do you have more examples, like more than, so an IEE, like what other new things did you try or came towards?
I did some contracting with another district to support them with some assessments. So that was definitely new.
How did you get that connection? Like, how did that happen? Because again, I'm going for like people are like, how does that even happen? Yeah.
Yeah. So when I was like, I'm going to do this, I started emailing like every SELPA around me and just saying, here's my resume, can you add me to your IEE list? Mm-hmm. And one, I'm excited to answer this question, because I think a big thing that I didn't do in the beginning was I didn't add like my rate sheet and things into when I sent information to SELPAs. And then I started doing that. And on my rate sheet, it says how much for just a district like supported assessment, and then how much for an IE. So I had both on there. And I only mention that right now because that's how somebody called me to do contracted assessments. So she said, I saw you on the IEE list, but then I also saw that you do contracted assessments. So can you help us here? So by putting myself out there with the SELPA lists and asking to be on those for IEEs, I inadvertently made a relationship that I didn't intend to, but it's really been helpful. And not only learning, how to contract and what that looks like and how to navigate that, but also made me feel more confident taking the leap and actually resigning from my position, because I felt like, wow, of course I've been putting work in to get my name out there, but look at what's already coming back. Like I can do this. And that really pushed me to call my boss and make that decision, because I knew, I already have these things. Like, imagine what I can accomplish if I am dedicating all of my time to doing this rather than just part of it. So that's how I got that one. And I thought that was, and she actually, the person who called me, she told me that, she goes, I was looking for someone just to do contracted things. I didn't find anybody. So thanks for including that in your information on the IEE list. And honestly, that wasn't my goal, but I was so glad I had done that. So for anybody listening, that I think is a great little tidbit of information I fell into, but I thought it was really helpful.
I do the same thing. I have like the IEE rates up there. Contractor rates.
And it was just an accidental, beautiful thing that happened. Very exciting.
I think a lot of people are feeling that difficulty with the red tape and the bureaucracy
Yeah.
And I think after COVID, when we all were like at home doing so much of our work with a more flexible schedule, yet still doing all the work
Yep.
and knowing and realizing that we didn't actually have to be physically in a certain place at a certain time to
Mm-hmm.
to be productive and to do a good
Yeah.
job. Then when they made us, like one comes back, we all come back, right? And then we're all like, why are we all back? Like, why do we have to do this? No one else in the business world is having to go back full time. I
Exactly.
remember I was like, they made us come back in April that year, and I was a program specialist, so I was literally just on Zooms and Zoom meetings all day in IEP meetings, and
Yeah.
I didn't have an office. As a school psychologist, I had at least had an office.
Mm-hmm.
As a program specialist, I had a cubicle in a room with 6 other people. So I'm supposed to be in private IEP, confidential IEP meetings on Zoom wearing a mask
Yeah, no.
no, I'm like, well, this is ridiculous, and I just started to get so just frustrated with like a lot of it.
Yeah,
And
I feel that.
take much longer for me to be like,
Well, I think though, to that point, that you can feel that in yourself, like you can feel the tolerance building and or losing. I guess you lose
yeah,
the tolerance. But for me in the beginning, it was all about, how can I help you? How can I help the team? What do I need to do? And then sadly, I learned quickly that with that kind of a mentality, which there's nothing wrong with that, and I still love that quality about myself, but you also have to manage overdoing. And I am an overdoer for sure. Like, if I can solve it better than the person across from me, like, I'm just going to go solve it.
I'm going to
It
do
just saves.
my job,
Absolutely.
their job,
And your job.
I'll write the
And
goals,
probably that person's
I'll run
job.
the meeting. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. And, sure, that's great and fine. And I think it has its place. But there's also cons to that, because I inadvertently created teams that were super reliant on me. Going on maternity leave, I think, was more scary for them than it was for me. Just because of, and it wasn't on purpose. I wasn't trying to make anybody, like, need me that badly. But when you have that kind of natural, like, problem solving tendency, and you want to be useful, and then of course it's useful, like, people love it, they want you to do that too.
Right.
But what really would get me is when people that I might need help from, whether it's administrators or special education administrators, or that wouldn't reciprocate or see that, that's where it really started to get me. It was like, I would sit under a railroad track for my team. Like, whatever they need, I will help them, because that's for our kids. Like, I would do it. The higher up the ladder we go, the more I would want, like, well, no, person, like, you're in this meeting and I'm asking you the question because that's your role. Like, can you please, like, I'm not often asking this. So, like, if I'm asking, like, I really need you.
Yep.
And then that would just maybe not be taught or trained. And then that would drive me bonkers. Like, what are we doing here? Like, this is harmful at this point. Like, this is taking time. We're not actually, like, doing anything helpful.
Yep.
And that stuff was like, I have a hard time not saying something, and not in a negative way, more of a like, oh my goodness, like, let's solve this problem too, right? Let's collaborate and fix this. But then you kind of get to a point where I can't collaborate and fix the whole entire thing.
Right.
It's a huge system that, and this is not specific at all to my district, because I'm also learning from these other roles, this is a systematic issue.
Yeah.
This is, I love my district. And it's not that, it's the way that we as special educators in general are set up or not, for success and navigating that. It's hard.
In my last 4 years, I was a program specialist, and I just saw like I just had like no control over all of these IEP meetings that I was trying to like, I wasn't really like part of the IEP teams anymore. So that was tough for me too. And I was really good at what I was doing, but I knew that I needed to get back to like doing what I'm really good at, which is assessment and like working directly with kids and their families. And I had already like exited school psychology. And I had done that kind of because I had been in private practice for so long by that point that I was like, I want to do these kinds of assessments. And so let me try my hand at program specialist to see, but I still love this. And then I was like, okay, I did this for a bit. And then I was like, yeah, no, this is not how I want to spend every day. You know, we're dealing with a lot of stuff that I didn't have a lot of control over. And I was like, I felt like a salesman. I was like selling special education programs.
Oh, yeah.
This program is great. Your student is going to thrive here. And inside I'd be like, but the teacher's leaving and I'm not allowed to say anything.
Yes.
And, you know, like,
yes. Oh, my team and I, we say that all the time. We're like, it's hard to, the image is one thing. The facts are a different thing. And again, this is not at all, you know, personal to one program, person, or district or whatever. This is just the way that it is.
Yep.
And the word salesman, I think, is the perfect, you feel like, and you know what's even harder, but I have to say, I am kind of looking back, I'm grateful I've had these experiences because I feel like I've mastered the art of like strange confrontation in meetings when I like super don't agree with whatever our program specialist or our person is saying. I have had to learn how to, like, you want to hold your ground and say your piece, but you're also one person and you're also one team member, but you also know it's wrong, but you also want to be professional and respectful. Like, it's all these pieces to navigate. And sadly, I've gotten pretty good.
Right.
And I'm glad about that, you know, but all of these reasons were just things that kept reminding me and telling me, like, you're not going to fix this by yourself. You know, like, I can't go in, and even if you get the perfect group and the best program specialist and the best everybody, you know, it's still, the system is not set up for this. And it's not set up for success every time. And that's defeating. It's hard to accept that.
Yeah. Well, I completely applaud you for, like just listening to your own self. And I think plenty of people are going to continue on and feel like totally fulfilled and great and wonderful.
Exactly.
And there's a lot of fantastic things about working in schools. And then there are some of us who just feel like I need to do a little bit of something different, or I need to do a lot of something different, but I still want to use these incredible skills and do this work that I came into this field for, right? And so and I think we all find it a different way. So tell me, like, what are your what's your company called, or what's your business called? And then, like, what are your plans for like the kind of work you want to do? And then take me into your interest areas, because you have a cool one. Yeah.
I will. So my business is just called Amy Burns Merenda LEP. So I've kept it kind of short and simple for now. And I love it. I got a sign outside of my office, Jana, and I was like, it has my name on it. I was very excited. So, that I kept it kind of, to the point for now. So let's see. I really have a connection with neurodivergent people. That's my thing. And, before I got really into researching and understanding the neurodiversity-affirming movement, I didn't know any of that, the terminology, neurodiversity affirming, none of that. But I've always been very connected to that community, both, personally and of course, professionally. We're very involved in groups of people and students that require some additional needs, right, for their learning. But in my core, the thinking that somebody is different and bad or wrong or broken just never sat with me ever. My older sister, I know I've mentioned her a couple of times, but she has significant challenges, both learning and in her social emotional well-being. And growing up, she's 5 years older than me. So I kind of had this like back row seat to watching her experience the education system, and it was never good. And my mom was a special educator, right? She was an SLP. She did it for 30 something years. She ran a million IEPs, but watching my parents go into my sister's IEPs and then leave upset and crying and not happy is not a good feeling. And watching my sister's kind of trajectory, of course, it's different in elementary, middle school was very different, and high school was really a bad experience for her. And just watching my family experience that, it was never like, that's where I come from, is just, well, nothing's wrong with my sister. That's who she is. And so this feeling of just, who are we to say, who is normal or typical or fine? Everyone's doing their best and working to the best of their capacity. Ross Greene, the author and the speaker, he has that saying where he said, kids do well if they can. And I think that's so true about all of us, all people. And so this is really something that has completely molded my worldview. And when I went into the school psychology program, of course, and then started practicing school psychology, it bothers me how deficit focused special education is. And I understand it logistically, right? You have to show these particular needs and all of that. And I get that from a logistical perspective, but that does not mean that when we're talking to families and when we're talking with kids, we have to wear that hat. I really believe that you can be legally defensible and strengths-based at the same time. That is possible.
Completely.
We can do it.
Yep.
You can do it. And it might not be what people are used to or comfortable with, because they want to go back to making sure, everything in their report is perfect and will be legally defensible. And I get that stress too. And it's valid. I'm not at all, docking that. But we've got to work on how we're talking about it and presenting it to families. I never, ever, ever want any parent I talk to, not in the schools, not out of the schools, anywhere, to feel like my own parents did. And watching my sister's kind of life progress, a lot of her educational experience has stuck with her. And she has a lot of challenges because of all of that. She wasn't necessarily set up for adulthood in a way that I think was appropriate. Now that I know all of these things, I look back and I'm like, what the heck? What was that? Why did that happen? Or why did that not happen? And I just never want to make anyone feel that way. So it's my goal to really make everybody feel the opposite, feel valued for who they are. And I have been very criticized at my schools in the past for wearing rose-colored glasses, and you're being too positive. Nothing doesn't always have to be good. They can't read. That's not good. And no, it's not good, right? But they also are super good at explaining to you how things go together. And let's talk about that too, right? We don't need to spend the whole time saying what they cannot do. That's super unhelpful. This doesn't do anything for anybody except make the parent feel sad and make the kid feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So I don't understand the point. And I've really worked with my school teams on trying to reframe how we talk about things. Yeah. And that has really been my passion as I leave the schools. It's now I get to talk about things in the way I want to talk about things, right? I don't have to, follow a certain protocol or make sure I forget this form or whatever it could be. And I love that, because I want the whole process to be strengths-based, to be uplifting, to talk about let's look at the things that your child can do better than anybody else, and how that can uplift the things that they're struggling to do. So not to dismiss what they can't do or what they're doing, poorly or having a hard time with. That's very valid. But how do we support those things? Well, you support any weakness with something that you do well in the ways that you compensate. Let's learn about those things.
Yeah.
And start to kind of fill in those holes. And I found, parents are lighter when they leave. Yeah. When you talk about it like this, it's not, and people are nervous. People are nervous to talk to psychologists. Whether you're a school psychologist or not, it's scary. You don't want anyone to sit there and tell you, oh, here's the thing, you're super bad at this. Nobody wants that. Right. Why would you do that? Yeah. But what they do want to hear is, I know X, Y, and Z is hard, and that's why you're here. And I saw that for you. But you know what else I saw is you can get better at that based on all these other things I learned about you. That is such a different conversation than, yes, you meet this and you have this gap, and I can defend this in front of a judge any day, all day, but I've harmed you in the process. So being neurodiversity affirming is it's when I learned that phrase, I was like, this is what my life has been about, is this phrase. Right. And I dove in. I mean, read books written by neurodivergent people, listened to speakers, watched people talk, asked neurodivergent people questions. I mean, it's all about, because I do not identify as being neurodivergent. And I'm very open about that when I talk about it. You know, it's one thing for me to say, like, it's super great for neurodivergent people to do X, Y, and Z. But what do I know? You know, I'm not neurodivergent. And so making sure that any recommendation, any discussion is had with neurodivergent voices in mind. And I think that's a really important part of any movement, any, you know, social justice movement, any education movement, is making sure we're not speaking for people, but we're allowing people to have a space to speak for themselves. Mm-hmm. And I am, you know, just so connected to that mission. I've transformed how I write reports. I've transformed how I present information. I've transformed, and I've been doing this for several years, but now I feel like I have, like, the gates are kind of open, you know, right, to do it all differently. Yeah. And all of it matters. You know, even if people listening just think about changing one thing in what they do, it makes a huge difference. Maybe it's how you know, present the results. Maybe it's how you write stuff in your report. Maybe it's, you know, how you discuss what a disability is or means, but it all has an impact, and that impact lasts a lot longer than you think. And I listened to my sister and watched my family continue to grow and change. And I'm reminded all the time, you know, the choices we make last longer than just that meeting, and they last longer than that year. And sometimes people process things years later, or they say, yeah, one time somebody told me this, and that was like 10 years ago. You know, it all matters. Yeah. So I know, you know, I hope I answered the question, but it's just such a drive for me. And I want to make sure that anything I try, any new thing I want to do in this practice is with being neurodiversity affirming in mind. Yeah. And I'm really committed to that.
It feels so much better just even talking to parents about their children to frame it in that kind of way. I literally,
oh my gosh, yes.
I just had a case like this, and I debriefed with the parent and the child yesterday, and then the parent again this morning, because we did it like together, and then just like finished up with the parent. But they came from like the first evaluation that they had was so, I called it catastrophic. Like,
oh no,
I couldn't even literally read it. Like the whole format, the language, how every single little movement the child had made was like picked apart. And it was interesting because I don't think that was the intent of the writer, of the psychologist, but that's how it read. Like, so when I, you know, like you go and you read like, you know, previous reports, right? You want to, yeah. I like literally was like, you know what? I'm just going to take this kid who he is now. But what I said when I got this report, which was 150 pages long, because
are you serious?
There was actually an entire PowerPoint presentation on neurodiversity at the end of it. It was like the weirdest thing. It was attached, like literally attached. And I was like, okay.
Oh my goodness.
I can't read this. But so I said to the parent, I said, just so you know, my report is not going to look like this. So if this is if this is what you want, like you are going to see something very different, right? But I want you to know that, because some parents really want that, right? And I want them to know, especially if they've come from having something like that, I want them to know, if I know that ahead of time, you're going to see something really different coming from me. So what came out of this, I think, was the parent feeling, because I literally used the word like that. It would just felt so catastrophic. And I'm actually I'm going to take a lot of these diagnoses and I'm going to put them down here as like from history, but are not currently even in the current diagnoses right now. And I'm going to tell you exactly why, you know, because there is not a substantial, you know, quantifiable difficulty here. Okay. So, and it just, I think the parent just left so much lighter, like
Yeah.
you're saying, right? Like, just like, huh, like this person, I really felt like she felt like I saw him for who he was, what his strengths are, and that
Yes.
I wrote it in a way that I'm hopeful that the new school he's going to go to, whatever educators are going to work with him, are going to be able to read that and see the light in him, and
Yes.
that they'll help bring that out of him and help him like regulate the things that he does that kind of like, like make people like, make people whatever, right?
Sure.
Says
Yeah. Yeah.
some
Yeah.
emotional reactions, but like they're not scary. They're like fine. So like let's celebrate him for like this
Yes.
amazingness that he has and all of those things,
Yes.
and like support the areas where he still needs some work, right? Some areas
That's
of
it.
growth. And
Mhm.
I just think she really like it made me feel so good to
Yeah.
make her feel so good, right? Like,
Yes.
okay, like he's going to be okay in middle school, right? Like,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
right.
No, I love that. And the word you use, celebrate, like that's it. Like all of us have things to be celebrated. And, another big phrase kind of in the neurodiversity movement is presuming competence. So assuming that people can learn and do learn and will learn for whatever that means, right? You could apply that to, someone with an intellectual disability and you want to help them cognitively learn. Maybe you're applying it to more of an emotional situation, but you're basically assuming that they can and
Right.
that they will if you give them the space to do that rather than the opposite.
Well,
And
that's
I
what,
think that, yeah, a lot of times the system, rather it's even, and diagnostic approaches to things are not much more strengths based, right? They can also be really deficit focused. And that's what it's set up to find all the issues, the problems, and pull from that. And we have to just flip it on its head. You can still do the job well and answer the same questions, but with a different lens.
yeah.
And, I can't see it happening any other way in my mind.
Yeah. Well, that's why I named my company Mind by Design, because I like
Yeah.
believe that everybody has the ability to design how their mind is going to develop and grow and thrive.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
we have the power, our brains are plastic and they will
Mhm.
mold and grow. And with the right support, like everybody can thrive in their way. Right. So that's exactly what I thought
Absolutely.
when I named my practice. So
I love that.
we're on the same
So good.
page.
Yes,
Yeah.
we are.
Yeah.
I love that. Uh,
So I love your work, and you have some trainings coming up.
I do. So one of my kind of projects that I'm going to focus on this coming school year, I'm calling it Lunch Bunch with Dr. Merenda. So once a month, I'm having a neurodiversity affirming focused training, and it's all virtual. And every month is a different topic, but I'm going to apply neurodiversity affirming practices to that topic.
I'm
So, for
coming.
example, yay, yay. So, one of them, for example, is all executive functioning strategies, but through a neurodiversity affirming lens. Some other ones I'm really excited about are counseling strategies. I feel like that is an area that we have so much potential to influence a neurodivergent brain and make them feel heard consistently and still work on areas of need. So there's that topic. Also, for those in the schools that might still be working on writing IEP goals, writing neurodiversity affirming goals. Oh, I can't wait for that one because I feel like so many goals. I'm like, oh no, like I don't like that. So different strategies to apply to that. Ways to kind of collaborate with other professionals through a neurodiversity affirming lens. How do I sit in this IEP meeting and talk, or at a parent discussion to review results? How do I talk about these things in a neurodiversity affirming way? So every month is just a little tidbit. It's only an hour long. It's just a little lunchtime. We can all sit and chat and learn in that way. But I am so excited to do it. I was telling myself, like, okay, Amy, here's my imposter syndrome coming in, but it's like, if just one person comes, it'll be fun. If no people come, I guess I'll just record myself. But these are the things you think when
Yeah.
you're jumping out and trying something new.
Yeah.
And I told one of my good friends from grad school, she also got her doctorate at the same time I did. So I call her my dissertation buddy. We call each other D-buds. And I was like, D-bud, look, you have to actually come to everyone. So I'm not talking to nobody. She's like, no, people are going to want to hear it and learn.
Yeah.
So I would love for anyone who's interested to come, and there's information on my website about signing up, and all the different topics are listed and everything too. So I'm very excited. It'll be once a month starting in September.
Awesome. And so say the name of your website once again, and we'll also put it in the show notes, of course.
Yep. So my website is amymerenda.com, and it has information about the lunch bunch options. And there's also right now I have kind of a freebie that I made just to share with psychs. And it's a bell curve, but with a neurodiversity-affirming lens. Ooh. So there's language in there that folks can use when they're talking about standard scores in a neurodiversity affirming manner, and different ways that you can explain, a very low score versus a very high score, also with keeping on kind of those thoughts of being neurodiversity affirming. So that's on there too, if folks want to check that out. If you want to check it out, Jenna.
I'm going to check it out. I'm like,
I love
amymerenda.com. I got it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, this has been amazing. If there's, a piece of advice that you could give to somebody else kind of thinking about starting out, what would you say?
I would say that being nervous and being excited often feel the same. So if you're nervous, you should go for it. And my dissertation buddy, she actually is the one that told me that when we were getting ready to defend our dissertations, we're prepping things. And I was like, I'm going to barf. Like, this is disgusting. Like, I hate, this is so stressful. And she told me, she goes, well, you feel the same way when you're excited. We're just going to tell ourselves we're excited. We're not nervous. We're excited. And I have really applied that to this time in my life. And I would encourage other people to do the same thing. It's okay to be both nervous and excited, but just know if you're feeling nervous, you're also excited. So remembering that.
Yeah. It's like eustress, right? Useful stress.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It gets you going.
Yeah. Well, this has been just, I love your energy. I'm so excited for you.
Thank you, Jenna.
You're right at the beginning, and it just gives me chills to think about just how exciting it is. Well,
and I want to say before we hang up that listening to your podcast has really been transformative at this time in my life. It's come at such an influential time for me, just when you started putting episodes out there, and every week I am soaking it in. So being here, I'm like, whoa, this is so exciting. But so thank you for all the work that you're doing, because I would love it at any time in my life. This is awesome. But it just came at such the perfect time for me. And if other folks are at a transformative time, listen and try and be brave, and we can do it together, and you're not alone, because I am also nervous and excited.
And I am also nervous and excited. Well, yeah, thank you for that. You're so welcome. And I'm happy to be bringing these conversations. And I was telling you before we got on, and I posted on social media this morning, I get excited every Friday morning because I listen to the episodes as I'm getting ready, because I don't go back and listen to these after. I just send them off to be in whatever platform they go into to put them out, and then they come out and my phone lights up at 7 a.m. or something, and I'm all, ooh, we have a new episode, and I play it when I finish getting ready, and I play it on 1.25 speed so that we're just sound fast and excited.
Oh, totally.
And I'm like, oh my God, we're so interesting, and oh my God, this person, I didn't even remember that she said that, or it just gets. I just love, because I'm sitting here listening to you this whole time, but when I go back and listen to it the second time, it's even better. I don't know, I'm not focused, right? I'm just and it's so good. Yeah. It just get inspired, and it's just a great way to start a Friday. So
the best part of every week, I'm it's the time.
Thank you.
It really is.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, I'm just loving everybody who I'm talking to. It's just great. So thanks.
So awesome.
Well, Dr. Amy Merenda, thank you so much for joining me on the Empower LEP podcast. And I will be at your lunch bunch starting in September.
Woo-hoo. Yay! See you then.
Thank you for listening to the Empower LEP podcast. Episodes can be found at empowerlep.com. If you liked what you heard, please leave a 5-star rating and review on your favorite podcast player. If you'd like to be a guest on the show, or if you have any questions for me, don't hesitate to connect. I would love to learn more. I can be found at jana@empowerlep.com.